The wounded stranger, the twin sons of Kepler, 442b, cast harsh shadows across the crystalline wasteland as Marcus wiped sweat from his weathered face. At 18, he had learned to survive alone in the border territories where few dared to venture. His parents had been taken by raiders 3 years ago, leaving him to scavenge among the ruins of old settlements that dotted this forgotten land. The sound that made him freeze was unlike anything he had heard before. A low, musical moan that seemed to resonate through the very ground beneath his feet. Marcus clutched his salvaged plasma cutter tighter and crept toward the source of the sound. What he found behind a cluster of purple crystal formations made his breath catch in his throat. The creature before him was clearly not human, yet undeniably intelligent. Her skin shimmered with an opalescent quality that shifted between deep blue and silver, and delicate ridges traced elegant patterns along her arms and neck. Her hair, if it could be called that, moved like liquid starlight, despite the absence of any breeze. But it was her eyes that captivated him, large, luminous orbs that held pain, fear, and surprising dignity. She was injured badly. A jagged wound across her left leg leaked a substance that glowed faintly in the dim light, and her breathing came in shallow gasps. When their eyes met, Marcus saw her tense, ready to fight or flee despite her obvious weakness. "Easy," Marcus said softly, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "I'm not going to hurt you, the Alien 4. That's what she had too," but tilted her head at his words. When she spoke, her voice was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "You understand my words?" Marcus blinked in surprise. "You speak our language?" "We Zerathi learn many tongues," she replied, wincing as she tried to shift position. "I am called Zephia. You are ... human?" "Marcus," he introduced himself, taking a cautious step closer. "And yes, human. What happened to you?" Zephia's expression darkened. "Ravager scouts. They hunt my people, seeking our crystal caves. I led them away from my tribe. But ... She gestured weakly at her wound. Marcus had heard whispers of the Ravagers' brutal alien mercenaries, stripped worlds of their resources. If they were targeting the Zerathi, both their peoples might be in danger. But right now, politics seemed less important than the injured being before him. "That wound needs treatment," Marcus said. Kneeling beside her, "My shelter isn't far. I have medical supplies." Zephia's eyes widened with surprise. "You would help me. Our peoples have been ... distant. Maybe it's time that changed." Marcus replied, echoing words he didn't know would prove prophetic. He studied her wound more closely, noting how the strange luminescent fluid seemed to be slowing. "Can you walk if I help you?" "I think so." Zephy's voice carried uncertainty, but also growing trust. Marcus carefully slipped his arm around her waist to support her weight. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through him. Her skin was cool but somehow warming under his touch, and he caught a subtle fragrance like night-blooming flowers after rain. Zephia gasped softly at the contact, her opalescent skin shifting to deeper hues that Marcus somehow knew indicated surprise and something else he couldn't quite identify. "Your body temperature," she murmured as they began to move slowly toward his shelter. "It's so warm. Is this normal for humans?" "About normal," Marcus replied, trying to ignore how perfectly she seemed to fit against his side. "Is yours always so cool?" "We are creatures of the crystal caves," Zephia explained, leaning more heavily on him as they walked. "We draw energy from the resonance of living stone. Your warmth. It's soothing in ways I did not expect." They made slow progress across the rough terrain, and Marcus found himself increasingly aware of every point where their bodies touched. There was something almost electric about her presence, as if she carried some form of energy that responded to his. Proximity. When they finally reached his modest sheltora, reinforced cave he had fitted with salvaged technology, Marcus helped Zephia settle onto his sleeping mat. As he gathered his medical supplies, he couldn't help but notice how the dim lights of his equipment seemed to pulse in rhythm with her. "Breathing, this might sting," he warned as he began to clean her wound. Zephy's hand found his wrist. her cool fingers wrapping around his skin. "Marcus of the humans," she said softly, her luminous eyes meeting his. "Why do you show kindness to one who is stranger to your kind?" Marcus paused in his ministrations, struck by the depth of emotion in her gaze. "Because kindness shouldn't have boundaries," he said simply. "And because, double quotes, he hesitated, then decided on honesty. "Because looking at you doesn't feel like looking at a stranger." Something shifted in Zephy's expression, her skin taking on warmer tones that seemed to glow from within. "Among my people, we believe in bonds that transcend understanding." Perhaps the Crystal Singers were right about the prophecies of connection, as Marcus continued to tend her wound. He found himself wondering what those prophecies might say, and why his heart was racing in ways that had nothing to do with the danger surrounding them. Healing touch the next morning brought unexpected visitors to Marcus's shelter. He woke to the sound of melodic voices outside, speaking in the flowing language of the Zerathi. Zephyr stirred beside him on the sleeping mat where she had rested through the night, her skin now showing healthier, luminescent patterns. "My grandfather comes," she said, her voice carrying both relief and apprehension. "I sent a crystal call during the night while you slept." Marcus felt a flutter of nervousness as he helped Zephyr to her feet. Her wound had healed remarkably overnight, leaving only a faint silver line where the injury had been. "Will he be accepting of a human helping you?" Zeffy's hand found his, her cool fingers intertwining with his warm ones in a gesture that sent electricity up his arm. "Elder Corvin is wise. He will judge by actions, not ancestry." The entrance to the shelter darkened as a tall figure appeared. Elder Corvin was clearly ancient by any standard, his opalescent skin bearing intricate patterns that seemed to tell stories of countless years. His hair flowed like liquid mercury, and his eyes held depths that spoke of profound wisdom. Despite his age, he moved with graceful strength. "Grandfather," Zephyr said formally, though Marcus caught the warmth in her tone. "This is Marcus, who tended my wounds when I was helpless." The elder's penetrating gaze fixed on Marcus, who fought the urge to step backward. When Corvin spoke, his voice resonated with harmonics that seemed to touch Marcus's very soul. "A human who shows mercy to Zerathi," Corvin mused, circling Marcus slowly. "Curious. Our peoples have avoided each other for generations, yet you risk yourself for one you had never seen." "She needed help," Marcus replied simply. "I couldn't just leave her there." Corvin's expression softened slightly. "The crystal songs speak of those who act without thought of reward. Tell me, young Marcus, did you feel anything unusual when you first touched my granddaughter?" Marcus felt heat rise to his cheeks as he glanced at Zephyr, whose skin had taken on deeper blue tones. There was something, like energy or recognition." The elder nodded knowingly. "The resonance. It has been generations since it manifested between our kinds." He turned to Zephyr. "Child, show him your true nature." Zephyr stepped into a shaft of sunlight streaming through the shelter's entrance. As the light touched her skin, she began to change. Her opalescent surface became more pronounced, taking on an almost crystalline quality that refracted the light into dancing rainbows. Most remarkably, she began to emit a soft, musical tone that seemed to harmonize with the very air around them. "We are beings of living crystal," she explained, her voice now carrying ethereal harmonics. "We share resonance with others through touch and proximity. What you felt was my essence recognizing something in yours." Marcus stared in wonder, then slowly reached out his hand. When Zephyr placed her transformed palm against his, the sensation was indescribable. He could feel her emotions, her memories, her very life force connecting with his own. The experience was intimate beyond anything he had ever imagined. "Fascinating," Corvin observed. "The resonance grows stronger." "Marcus, would you accompany us to our healing grounds? Your presence seems to amplify Zephyr's recovery. And there are things you should see." The journey to the Zerathi healing grounds revealed landscapes Marcus had never imagined. Crystal formations jutted from the earth in impossible spirals and geometric patterns, each one singing with its own frequency. The air itself seemed alive with harmonics that made his skin tingle with energy as they walked. Zephyr stayed close to his side, their hands brushing frequently. Each contact sent waves of warmth through both of them, and Marcus noticed that her skin grew more vibrant whenever they touched. "The healing pools are just ahead," Zephyr said, pointing to where steam rose from natural basins carved into living rock. The water within glowed with the same opalescent quality as her skin. "These waters carry the essence of our world," Corvin explained as they approached. "They heal not just wounds of the flesh, but bonds of the spirit." Marcus felt drawn to the pools, though he wasn't sure why. When Zephyr began to remove her flowing garments to enter the water, he turned away respectfully until her soft laughter made him look back. "We do not share human modesty," she said, her skin now completely crystalline and beautiful beyond description, "and the waters work best with direct contact." As Zephyr sank into the glowing pool, the water around her began to pulse with increased luminescence. "Join me," she invited, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to bypass his mind and speak directly to his heart. Marcus hesitated only a moment before removing his own clothes and stepping into the warm, tingling water. The moment he was fully submerged near Zephyr, the entire pool erupted in cascades of light and sound. The harmonics grew so intense that Marcus felt them in his bones, and when Zephyr's hand found his beneath the glowing surface, he gasped at the intensity of connection. "The ancient resonance awakens," Corvin said quietly from the pool's edge. "It has been 3 centuries since human and Zerathi achieved such harmony in the swirling lights of the healing pool." Marcus saw images, memories that weren't his own, visions of humans and Zerathi working together, building something beautiful that had been lost to time. And through it all, Zephyr's presence in his mind grew stronger, more intimate, until he couldn't tell where his emotions ended and hers began. When they finally emerged from the waters, both transformed by the experience, Marcus knew that nothing would ever be the same. Forbidden connection. Crystal caves of the Zerathi took Marcus's breath away. Vast chambers stretched into darkness, their walls lined with formations that sang in perfect harmony. The air itself seemed to pulse with life, and everywhere he looked, Zerathi moved through their daily routines with grace and purpose that spoke of thousands of years of civilization, but it was the tension in the air that worried him most. "Many of my people are concerned by your presence," Zephyr admitted, as they walked through a corridor whose walls depicted ancient histories and shifting patterns of light. "Not because you are unwelcome, but because of what our connection might mean." Marcus had felt the stare since entering the caves 3 days ago. While Elder Corvin had vouched for him and many Zerathi showed curious friendliness, others regarded him with suspicion or outright hostility. The most vocal opposition came from a warrior named Drex, whose crystalline skin held darker hues and whose voice carried undertones of aggression whenever he spoke. "The human contaminates our sacred spaces," Drex had declared that morning during the community gathering. "His primitive energy disrupts our harmonic balance," but Marcus had noticed something else whenever he and Zephyr were together. The crystals around them grew brighter and sang more sweetly. Far from disrupting anything, their presence seemed to enhance the very essence of Zerathi civilization. Now, as Zephyr led him deeper into the caves toward chambers he had not yet seen, Marcus felt the weight of dozens of eyes upon them. Their relationship had grown beyond friendship in the days since the healing pools. Stolen moments of intimate conversation, hands that lingered when they touched, and glances that spoke of desires neither fully dared to acknowledge. "Where are we going?" Marcus asked as they approached a section of the caves that seemed to pulse with unusual energy. "The heart chambers," Zephyr replied, her voice carrying nervous excitement. "Only bonded pairs are permitted entry. But I have received permission from my father to show you something important." Chief Valdris had been surprisingly accepting of Marcus's presence, though the humans sensed the leader was reserving judgment. Unlike Drex's open hostility, the chief's concern seemed more protective than prejudiced. The chamber they entered took Marcus's breath away. The walls were lined with crystals unlike any he had seen. These formations seemed almost alive, pulsing with internal light that responded to their presence. At the center of the room stood a pool of liquid that looked like captured starlight. "This is where bonded pairs," share the deep resonance, Zephyr explained. Her skin, taking on the warm hues that Marcus had learned, indicated strong emotion. It is the most intimate connection our people can achieve. Marcus felt his heart racing as he understood her meaning. Zephyr, are you suggesting? She turned to face him fully, her luminous eyes reflecting the chamber's ethereal light. I am suggesting that what I feel for you transcends the boundaries our peoples have maintained. When you touch me, Marcus, I feel complete in ways I never imagined possible. Before he could respond, she moved closer, her cool skin radiating energy that made his nerves tingle with anticipation. When her hands came up to frame his face, the contact sent cascades of sensation through both of them. Is this real? Marcus whispered, losing himself in her gaze. This connection between us? More real than anything I have ever known, Zephyr replied. And then her lips were on his. The kiss was unlike anything Marcus had experienced. Not just the physical sensation of her cool, soft lips against his, but the emotional resonance that accompanied it. He could feel her desire, her uncertainty, her hope, all flowing through their connection like music made tangible. When they parted, both breathing hard, the chamber around them had erupted in cascades of light. Every crystal surface reflected their combined energy, creating a symphony of color and sound that seemed to celebrate their union. The chambers approve, Zephyr said breathlessly. Her skin now showing patterns Marcus had never seen before, intricate mandalas of light that seemed to tell the story of their connection. And what about your people? Marcus asked, though his hands refused to release her waist, as if summoned by his words. Voices echoed from the corridor outside Chief Valdris Elder Corvin, and the unmistakable aggressive tones of Drex. They were coming to the heart chambers, and Marcus could hear the argument growing more intense as they approached. The human has corrupted her. Drex's voice carried clearly. Look how the crystals respond to their unnatural bonding. This is sacrilege. The crystals sing more beautifully than they have in decades, came Corvin's calm reply. How can beauty be sacrilege? Because it violates the ancient ways. Drex shot back. Our bloodlines must remain pure. Zephyr's grip on Marcus tightened as the voices grew nearer. Whatever happens, she whispered urgently, know that my feelings are true. If we must fight for this connection, I will stand beside you. Marcus pulled her closer, savoring what might be their last moment of peace. Then we face whatever comes together, he replied, sealing the promise with another kiss that sent the chamber's crystals into even more brilliant displays. When Chief Valdris entered the chamber with his entourage, he found Marcus and Zephyr standing hand in hand at the center of a light show that defied explanation. The chief's expression was unreadable as he took in the scene, while Drex's face contorted with disgust and Elder Corvin smiled with quiet satisfaction. So,
Out, Chief Valdris said finally,
his voice carrying the weight of leadership and difficult decisions. The rumors are true. My daughter has chosen to bond with a human. The words hung in the air like a challenge, and Marcus felt the future of both their peoples balanced on whatever came next. Ancient prophecy revealed the tension in the heart chamber was suffocating as Chief Valdris studied his daughter and the human who had captured her heart. Drex stood with arms crossed, his crystalline skin dark with disapproval, while Elder Corvin maintained his serene expression. The crystals around them continued to pulse with the energy of Marcus and Zephyr's connection, creating an ethereal backdrop to what felt like a trial. Father Zephyr began, but Valdris raised his hand for silence. There are protocols, the chief said gravely. When a bonding resonance manifests, especially one so unprecedented, the oracle must be consulted. Drex scoffed. What can the oracle tell us that we do not already know? This human is an outsider who saved my granddaughter's life, Corvin interrupted smoothly, and who has shown the resonance our people have not experienced in 3 centuries. Perhaps we should listen to what the crystals are telling us, rather than letting fear cloud our judgment. Marcus felt Zephyr's hand squeeze his, as her father's gaze fixed on them both. Very well, Valdris decided. We will go to the oracle. But understand, human if Nissa speaks against this bonding. You will leave our lands and never return. The journey to the Temple of Echoing Lights took them through the deepest parts of the cave system, where the crystal formations grew so large they formed natural cathedrals. The Oracle Nissa dwelt in the heart of these formations, where the harmonic resonance was strongest and visions could be perceived most clearly as they walked. Elder Corvin fell into step beside Marcus. "Do not let Drex's hostility trouble you overmuch," the old Zarathi said quietly. "He lost his bonded mate to human raiders years ago. His hatred is born of pain, not wisdom." "I understand," Marcus replied, though he kept his voice low. "But what if the Oracle does see something wrong in our connection? What if we're breaking some cosmic law?" Corvin's laughter was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Young Marcus, the crystals themselves celebrate your union. How can that which creates such beauty be wrong?" The Temple of Echoing Lights was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. The chamber was vast, its ceiling lost in shadows, while the walls were covered in crystalline formations that moved constantly, shifting and flowing like frozen music. At the center sat a figure so ancient that she seemed more crystal than flesh. Oracle Nissa thought her skin had taken on the qualities of living gemstone, with veins of light running through her translucent form. When she spoke, her voice seemed to come from the very walls themselves. "Approach," she commanded, and Marcus felt compelled to step forward with Zephia at his side. Nissa's eyes, if they could still be called eyes, fixed on them, with an intensity that made Marcus feel exposed to his very soul. "The bonding resonance," she mused, her voice carrying harmonics that reverberated through the chamber. "It has been so long since I felt such pure connection." The Oracle rose from her crystalline throne and approached them, her movements flowing like liquid light. When she placed her hands on both their foreheads, Marcus gasped as visions flooded his mind. He saw ancient times when humans and Zarathi worked together as one people, building great cities that spanned both crystal caves and surface lands. He witnessed a golden age of cooperation and understanding that had been lost to time and conflict. But most shocking of all, he saw the reason for the separation, not hatred or fundamental differences, but fear of a great enemy that had driven both peoples into isolation. "The Ravagers," Nissa whispered, her voice now carrying urgent undertones. "They come again, as the ancient songs foretold. The crystal caves will fall unless the old alliance is restored." Chief Valdris stepped forward, his expression grave. "Oracle, are you saying the prophecies speak of my daughter and this human?" "I am saying," Nissa replied, turning to face the gathered Zarathi, "that the bond between these two is the key to our survival. The prophecy speaks of starlight joining earthfire, harmony born from different songs. Their connection will awaken powers that have slept for centuries." Drex's skin flushed darker with anger. "Impossible. How can the union of alien bloodlines save us?" Nissa's ancient gaze fixed on the warrior. "Because, young Drex, the powers that defend the crystal caves respond not to purity of blood, but to purity of intention. These two love truly and completely. Such love transcends the boundaries that fear has created." As if to prove her words, the crystals throughout the temple suddenly blazed with brilliant light, their harmonic song growing so beautiful that several of the Zarathi were moved to tears. Marcus felt power flowing through him, energy that seemed to come from his connection with Zephia, but was amplified by their surroundings. "The defensive crystals," Corvan breathed in wonder. "They haven't responded like this in lifetimes." Oracle Nissa nodded gravely. "And they will need to respond thus when the Ravagers arrive. My visions show them approaching 3 days, perhaps less. They seek to drain our world's crystal essence, which will leave it a lifeless husk." Chief Valdris looked between his daughter, the human she loved, and the implications of what the Oracle revealed. "Then we prepare for war. But what of their bonding? Can it truly help us?" "Their bonding must be completed," Nissa declared with finality. "Tonight, under the convergence of the twin moons, only then will their combined resonance be strong enough to activate the ancient defenses." Marcus felt Zephia's hand tighten in his as the weight of responsibility settled on their shoulders. Their love, which had begun as a simple act of kindness, now carried the fate of an entire civilization. "No pressure at all," Marcus murmured, earning a surprised laugh from Zephyr that seemed to lighten the heavy atmosphere. But as they prepared to leave the temple, alarms began echoing through the crystal caves the deep. Resonant tones that warned of approaching danger. "They come early," Oracle Nissa said, her ancient features showing the first emotion Marcus had seen from her: fear. "The Ravagers are here." Love conquers. All the crystal caves erupted into organized chaos as the Zarathi prepared for battle. Warriors moved through the corridors with fluid grace, their crystalline weapons humming with stored energy. But Marcus could see the fear beneath their determination. The Ravagers were legendary for their ruthlessness and superior technology. "The bonding ceremony," Zephyr said urgently as they rushed toward the heart chambers. "It must be completed before the battle begins." Chief Aldris intercepted them in the main corridor, his expression grim. "There's no time. The Ravagers have breached the outer perimeter. Their energy weapons are already draining power from the defensive crystals through the trembling walls." Marcus could hear the sounds of battle, the discordant shriek of alien weapons against the harmonic defenses of the Zarathi. Each blast seemed to dim the lights around them, as if the very life force of the cave system was being slowly drained away. "Then we performed the ceremony here," Elder Corvin declared, appearing with Oracle Nissa at his side. The ancient seer's crystalline form was already beginning to fade, her life essence tied too closely to the cave's weakening energy. In the middle of a battle, Drex protested even as he hefted his weapon. Despite his earlier opposition, the warrior had accepted the Oracle's word and now fought to protect his people, especially in the middle of battle, Nissa replied, her voice growing weaker but more urgent. Their love, tested by fire, burned brighter than 1,000 stars. The caves shuddered as something massive struck the main entrance. Through the corridors echoed the terrifying roars of Ravager shock, troops creatures bred for destruction, whose very presence seemed to poison the harmonic environment of the crystal caves. Marcus pulled Zephyr close as debris rained down around them. "Whatever this ceremony involves, we need to do it now." Zephyr's skin blazed with determined light as she nodded. Around them, the surviving Zarathi formed a protective circle, their weapons ready even as their oracle prepared to perform the most sacred of their rituals in the midst of warfare. "Join hands," Nissa instructed. Though her form was becoming increasingly translucent, "Open your hearts completely. Let nothing exist between, fear, no doubt, or reservation." As Marcus and Zephyr clasped hands in the center of their impromptu ceremony, the attacking forces broke through the main defenses. Ravager soldiers poured into the corridor, hulking brutes with technology that crackled with malevolent energy, their red eyes glowing with predatory hunger. "Now," Corvin shouted, even as he raised his weapon to meet the first wave of attackers. Marcus looked into Svefi's luminous eyes and felt everything else fade away. The battle, the danger, the fate of civilizations, none of it mattered except the love that flowed between them. When their lips met in the binding kiss, energy exploded outward from their joined forms. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Every crystal in the cave system suddenly blazed with renewed life, their harmonic song rising to a crescendo that made the Ravagers stumble and cry out in pain. The defensive systems that had lain dormant for centuries roared back to life, powered by the pure resonance of true love. "Impossible," one of the Ravager commanders snarled, his technological implants sparking as the harmonic energy interfered with his systems. The defenses were already failing. But they weren't failing anymore. As Marcus and Zephyr's bonding reached its climax, waves of energy pulsed through the crystal caves, each pulse striking the invaders like a physical blow. The Ravagers, creatures of discord and destruction, found themselves unable to function in an environment so saturated with harmony and love. Marcus felt power flowing through him that he had never imagined possible. Not his own power, but the combined strength of his bond with Zephyr, amplified by the crystal caves themselves. Through their connection, he could sense every corner of the cave system, every wounded Zarathi, every struggling defense crystal, the resonance barriers. Zephyr gasped, her own awareness expanding through their bond. "We can restore them all. Together, They reached out with their combined consciousness, pouring their love, amplified energy into the defensive systems. Barriers of pure harmonic force sprang up throughout the caves, trapping Ravagers in pockets of increasingly hostile sonic environment. Chief Valdris, fighting near the entrance, watched in amazement as his enemies began to retreat, their weapons failing and their enhanced physiology unable to cope with the cave's restored defenses. The prophecy. Oracle Nissa whispered, her form stabilizing as the cave's energy renewed her. The starlight and earthfire have joined, and harmony conquers discord. But the battle wasn't over yet. The Ravager commander, a massive brute with cybernetic enhancements, broke through the harmonic barriers through sheer technological force. His weapon charged with enough energy to shatter the bonding chamber and kill both Marcus and Zephyr. Your primitive love magic ends now, he roared, raising his weapon for a killing strike. Drex threw himself between the Ravager and the bonded pair, his own crystalline blade meeting the alien's weapon in a shower of sparks. You will not harm them, the warrior declared, his earlier opposition forgotten in the face of what he had witnessed. The distraction was enough. Marcus and Zephyr, their bonding now complete and their powers fully awakened, reached out together one final time. The crystal caves responded with a pulse of energy, so pure and powerful that it not only drove the remaining Ravagers from the system but sent a message across space itself, a declaration that this world was protected by forces beyond technology or brute strength. As the echoes of battle faded and the caves settled into peaceful harmony, Marcus and Zephyr remained in each other's arms, their skin now showing matching patterns of light that marked them as eternally bonded. So, Chief Valdris said, approaching with a smile that transformed his stern features, welcome to the family. Son-in-law Elder Corvin's laughter filled the chamber like music, and thus begins a new age of cooperation between our peoples. The prophecy is fulfilled, but the story has only just begun. Marcus looked around at the faces of the Zirathi who had accepted him, at the crystal caves now singing with renewed life, and at the woman whose love had saved them all. His simple act of kindness beside a stream had led to this moment, proving that sometimes the smallest gestures can change the fate of worlds. What happens now? He asked Zephyr, whose opalescent skin now perfectly complemented the warm glow that seemed to emanate from his own human.
Form now, she replied,
her voice carrying harmonics of joy and infinite possibility. We build the future together. As the twin moons rose through the cave's crystal ceiling, casting rainbow patterns across the celebrating Zirathi, Marcus knew that this was indeed just the beginning of their never-ending story.